Welcome to the garage. Just want to do a video on my 1974 BMW R75/6. This is a bike I have had for about 2 months now, and it was kind of a barn find. I bought it off a buddy who got it about 7 years ago, and he did a little bit of work to it and essentially put it in his shed, and it's been sitting there ever since. And we kind of worked out a deal, and I ended up with it. It wasn't in bad shape when I got it. It just had been sitting for 7 years, so a lot of things were dry rotted. So I had to replace a lot of different gaskets, things of that nature. So I just want to do a quick kind of review because I didn't find a whole lot of videos on the 75/6. So I just want to kind of have this out there for people who may be interested in one and want to kind of know the download low on it. This one is in, as you can see from the video, in pristine shape. It is really good. There's a few little things that I'm going to address probably next season, but for now they're not detrimental at all. They're really just little personal quirks of my own. So we'll start here at the front tire. The biggest issue I had when I got this was the front brakes were completely shot. This is a 74. I believe this is the first year that they did calipers on the front. So they're hydraulic, as opposed to previous years had drum brakes and on the front and on the rear. But they put a single caliper on the front, which ends up being not the greatest thing in the world. Is you can read on plenty of forums, and if you ever ride one of these, the braking is something you got to learn. But if you've ever ridden an old, I don't know, coupe or something from 20s or 30s, those had mechanical brakes, and you kind of use a lot of engine braking, and you can figure those out and safely drive them. Well, it's nothing like that. This thing actually brakes fairly decently, just not like a new motorcycle. So I had to completely go through the caliper, rebuild it, and I didn't put new lines. That is one of those things I was talking about I'm going to do next summer. I'm going to put a braided stainless steel line here because that is starting to dry rot on me, so I definitely have to replace it. But underneath the tank is the master cylinder. Underneath here, tank comes off fairly easily. Just some screws down underneath the seat, and it completely had to be rebuilt. I got lucky, and a lot of times the inside of that piston will become really pitted and rusted, and you just basically have to have a machinist bore it out and re-sleeve it. Mine was not in that bad of shape except for the outside. All the seals were dry rotted, so all the fluid had leaked out of it, and I had to buy a rebuild kit, completely rebuild it, and now it's working like new. So the brakes are pretty good, much better than what I'd actually read online. So that was good at least, but they're still, something to be desired. The later years, I guess they addressed the complaint from customers, and they ended up putting 2 calipers on the front, which obviously helped out a lot with the braking. And then I'm not sure when they switched to calipers in the back. So the tank is just like it was in 74, but it's in perfect condition. There's really no chips or anything. That's actually not even a chip. That's like a little piece of white flake paint or something on it. But it's super shiny. I almost think the emblems have been replaced at some point because they're just perfect. And the chrome's not pitted or anything like that on them. One thing this bike didn't have when I got it, because the 2 owners ago took the hood or the tachometer and stuff, speedometer display, they took it off and sold it on eBay because I guess they're pretty desirable. So it didn't have that. So I really don't know how many miles it has on it other than what the title says. So I stuck another tachometer on there, and like an aftermarket one, obviously. There's a cool thing here where the key is. If you don't know that, it's really nice. Handlebars are stock. Grips, I believe, are stock. Some of the wiring has been changed on this as far as what was ran. It didn't have, normally right here or here, one of these places, there is the turn signals on the front, and one of the previous owners removed those. So those are no longer on there. The rear actually had them when I got it, and I still have them. I took it off because with this isn't how you would buy it, new. I like the cafe racer style, so I really stripped things down to give it that look. I have the side panels. They go here. They go on the left side and the right side, and I removed those. It also had the original BMW baggage and the frame and everything. I still have it. I took it off and just to give it a cleaner look. So here in the back, I've taken everything off the rear end. I put new oil in everything. I re-greased any fittings. I took the shocks off. They were rusted, but it was just surface rust, and as you can see, they cleaned up like perfectly. I figured they would be shot, but they're not. They work great. Exhaust, the right exhaust has a little hole in it, so the mufflers are something I'm going to replace next year. Rear fender's in great shape, no cracks. They're plastic. Front and rear are both plastic. They're not metal, and they don't have cracks or chips or anything. They're in perfect condition. This is obviously an aftermarket seat. Don't know what happened to the original seat. Probably, like most of them, was the leather gave out, got holes in it. Someone tossed it or sold it and then put an aftermarket seat. I actually really like this seat. It's very cafe racer like, so it fit my needs perfectly. I had to get a new battery for it. I did have to take that battery box out and redo all the rubber bushings in it because they were dry rotted. I didn't buy BMW rubber bushings. I got some at Lowe's and they work great. And I got all the rust off the pan because probably the battery leaked at some point, so it had rusted that the battery tray here. So I repainted it. Probably eventually buy a new one, but for now it's absolutely perfect. Engine wise, it's my friend and the guy I bought it off of. He had, before he put it up in storage, he had redone the heads as far as putting new rings on them. It still has the factory push rods in it and the push rod bushings, rubber bushings and stuff. They do have a little bit of cracking on them, so that's one of the things, along with the exhaust, the front brake hose. I'm going, and the both heads I'm going to rebuild next year with new gaskets and new rings and new push rods and push rods, bushings or gaskets or whatever you want to call them. I have gone through and redid the valves and tightened the head back up. The carbs, both carbs were in really bad shape, not beyond repair bad shape, but I had to completely rebuild them, let them soak for multiple days to get all the crud off of them. But they cleaned up really nicely and they came out good. I didn't like vapor blast or sandblast any of this stuff. This has all just been carb cleaned and hand kind of polished real quick. So, because I kind of like that old school, a lot of these you see like this aluminum almost looks white where they vapor blasted it or something. And I like the patina, I want to keep that on there. So I'm not getting rid of it. I did clean the engine up. I took the airbox off here and I did clean some of the oil and stuff off there for sure. It has a brand new starter in it, new spark plug cables. This float bowl kept leaking. So if you have problems with your float bowl leaking on these, make sure your petcock's off first of all, because if you leave them open, these needles will leak. But my overflow tube had a crack in it. So you can't hardly even see it with the naked eye. I had to get like a magnifying glass and then I could see it. And I soldered that up and fixed the problem. It is literally, it's not leak sense. And I was having intermediate leaks here and there. It was getting frustrating. I was about to buy a whole new carb and then found that and problem solved. Like I said, I don't know roughly, or I don't really know how many miles it has on it. But the engine runs great. I've owned a lot of motorcycles and new motorcycles and everything, and I've never had one start and run this great. The clutch push assembly here, I had to replace the internals. You can take this assembly out right here, and it has a gasket in there, and I had to replace all that because it was actually leaking onto the ground through that assembly there. So once I replaced that leaking started or stopped. Tank was perfect on the inside. Little bit of debris in there, was no problem to get that out. I replaced all of the gas lines, fuel lines and everything. I had to put a new mirror on it. It had some really squared off. It didn't match the bike at all, but they came out here and definitely aftermarket. This is more the round, there's more period to it, I think, or at least it looks that way. Got me kind of a retro helmet there with the goggles and kind of the cafe racer style gloves. Disassembled the rear end fairly recently and put new gaskets, re-greased, put new oil in the rear end and the final drive and the gearbox, and I believe that's all I've done with it. Like I said, it really just needed a little bit of cleanup and some TLC, some re-greasing, some O-ring replacements, things of that nature, and it was pretty much ready to hit the road and serve its purpose and continue to provide a lot of enjoyment. Gas tank, one thing I do need to do is replace the gasket on the gas tank lid because it is dry rot. It's hard as a rock, and gas can leak past it if splashing around and the tank's too full. But yeah, I mean, you can see it's a beautiful bike. I really like this look of it. I'm not a big fan of the big baggages and stuff. That's just my preference. I'm not going to turn it down. I still think they look great, but I just really, this style look really speaks to me. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel, like it. I'm going to be doing some kind of random stuff. Got a couple different businesses in the lineup, and so I'm going to be doing a lot of different stuff like this. I have another video coming up for a 1961 Vespa that I just recently acquired. That is actually a Hollywood prop. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be a pretty cool video to see how immaculate this thing is. So yeah, thanks for well, oh, haha, that's silly of me to end this video without letting you hear her start up. And turn the key. I normally do 1 or 2 pumps just with the fuel, not necessarily, but it just makes it start just like a second faster. And then we'll just we'll hit the starter. And I literally tapped the starter and it fired right up. And it purrs like a kitten. It'll idle like this absolutely all day, unless you turn the petcocks off like I did the other day leaving the gas station, and I broke down, and it took me a second to realize how stupid I was, but once I turned the petcocks back on, I was back on the road. So don't do that. But yeah, that's this 1974 BMW R75/6. Thanks for watching. All right, let's go ride.